Seorin and Goto Ryuji have heavily improved their respective teams by replacing their team's worst hunters, but exactly how good are they? Well, let's find out in this updated hunters tier list. And this right here is my previous tier list that I did for when Kane Tawata released, and if I'm being honest, I do want to make a lot of changes because I can't lie, it's looking pretty top heavy. And starting off with the first set of changes, and this is going to be where pretty much all of the SR hunters currently are, because if we are being brutally honest, I do think the vast majority of them are practically useless and nobody really does ever use them, which is why a lot of them are going to move down to the D tier, which is going to include the likes of Song Cheol, Park Byung-sik, Jo Kyu-hwan, Kim Chol, Han Song-yi, and then finally I do think Lee Joo-hee is going to go down to the D tier. But then also for the very first time in one of my tier lists, Kim Sang-sik is going to move up to the C tier, because every time I do these I just keep forgetting that he does actually have a pretty good support skill, which is called Sword of Repentance, which deals heavy break damage and is really good for Battlefield of Time, as when you use him and his support skill alongside the artifact sets like Solid Analysis for its up to I believe 45% extra break effectiveness, and then pair that up with a damage supporting accessory set like Sylph's Blessing, he can get a lot of value out of just through his support skill alone in Battlefield of Time. And joining him in that C tier is going to be Hwang Dong-suk, Nam Chae-young, Park Hee-jin, Kang Tae-shik, and then finally Yoo Jin-ho, because again, none of these characters are really that good, but they're definitely better than all of the SR hunters in the D tier. And then we have the B tier, which is going to have Lim Tae-gyu, Hwang Dong-soo, and Bae Kyun-ho. The A tier is going to feature Ana Ruiz, because she's still a very good debuffer for the likes of Guild Boss and also Power of Destruction, but again, I'm just trying to be a little bit harsher with where I place these hunters. Followed up by Emma Lawrence and also Seo Jiwoo, just because they are still very decent hunters that can be used in their own special ways, especially Emma, because she is still very good for Battlefield of Time. The S tier is also going to feature a lot of hunters that are mainly still very good, but just don't really have too many pieces of content for them to be used in, and just aren't as good as the characters that are going to be in S+ and especially SS, which is why for me, Alicia, Silvermane Bae Kyun-ho, Charlotte, Shimizu Akari, Lee Bora, Harper, Han Semi, and Choi Jong-in are all going to go down to the S tier for that very same reason. Oh yeah, I also forgot Woo Jin-chol is going to go from the S+ tier down to the B tier, just because Goto Ryuji exists and is way better. So then for the penultimate tier, we only have Maylene Fisher, and obviously that is going to change because I do want the SS tier to be the proper premium hunters in the game. So moving down from the SS tier, we are going to have Cha-hae, Go Geun-hee, Isla, Gina, and then also finally Min Byung-gu, which then leaves this as my current tier list, so I can now move on to ranking the two new hunters being Goto Ryuji and Seorin, starting off with Goto. And as you'll all know, Goto Ryuji is one of the best breakers in the game currently, because the amount of break damage that he can get from especially his first basic skill being Phantom's Heavenly Hurricane is absolutely insane, because this skill can be used 6 times in a row and can actually be now increased through his advancements, because his A5 increases the usage count of Phantom's Heavenly Hurricane, Reverse Tempest, and Stormblade by 2 times, with Reverse Tempest being his second basic skill and Stormblade being the enhanced version of that skill, which also does a lot of break damage. So with all of that in his kit alone, it does allow Goto to easily be one of the top 3 best breakers in the entire game, and also it even does allow him to do a lot of damage with the amount of basic skills that he can actually spam. He can also apply a very powerful buff to all of his win team members, being Arrogance, which is a very strong buff because it increases all of your win team members' crit damage by 20%, their basic skill damage by 20%, and then unfortunately their skill mana point consumption will increase by 33%, which is not really ideal, but the damage buffs you do get from it are definitely worth it. He does also have the ability to extend the enemy's break duration when in the break state by 3 seconds through his A1, whilst also increasing all of your entire team's damage to enemies in the break state by 12% through Tyrant's Path, and also he has Demonic Soul, which can increase his skills damage by quite a bit as well. His A2 also gives him a ton of extra break damage, which is fantastic, whilst having his A3 increase his crit damage by up to 20%, which is really good for him, as if you look at his A0 passive, it will also say that the user's critical hit rate will increase equal to 20% of his critical hit damage stat, which will make critting with him a lot easier, especially when you do get that A3 bonus of crit damage. And even his own exclusive weapon, Distorted Dreams, buffing his crit damage by up to 30% for 15 seconds when you use Reverse Tempest or Stormblade, is also going to help benefit him with that very greatly. And then finally, another really good damage buff that he does have is his A4, which increases the damage of the third hunter in your team by 24%, which again is very good for your Mirai. But also not to mention, when you use him for his support skill with your Sung Jin-woo, he is still very good at the very same time, because he'll do medium break damage with Cyclone Blade, but more importantly, he will apply Invincible King and Invincible King's Path, with Invincible King increasing the break duration to enemies in the break state by 3 seconds, just like his A1 passive. And then finally, Invincible King's Path is very, very powerful because it does increase your damage dealt to targets in the break state by 100%. So whenever you do come up against an enemy that can be broken multiple times, using Goto Ryuji for your support skill with your Jinwoo is going to be a very, very good. Which for me overall is definitely going to put Goto Ryuji all the way up to the S+ tier, but he still just isn't quite up to the standards of the top 5 hunters in the game, which I do believe are these 5 right here. Which then finally leaves me with the final hunter to rank in this tier list, which is Seorin, who is also a very, very good breaker who can deal lots of damage, just like Goto. And she is definitely a very, very good hunter who is going to be very, very good for future content that is coming up very soon, like the new upcoming Workshop of Brilliant Lights. Because also like Goto, she can extend the break duration that the enemy suffers by 3 seconds through her A0 passive alone, whilst also dealing a lot of break damage, which she gets through a lot of her skills, but also her pinpoint missiles. And these pinpoint missiles are fired off when she uses Frozen Spin, Ice Shard Magnum, or Glacier Spin, and also Polar Surge, which will deal damage equal to 150% of her max HP and can deal weak break damage, which is why she does have so much break damage, because on top of her skills doing medium break damage, with her having the ability to fire off so many missiles with these skills, it does allow her to not only deal a lot of damage, but also a lot of break damage, which is why she is also very, very powerful. And it is actually because of these missiles, which again is why she can actually do a lot of damage, because even through stuff like her exclusive weapon, she can actually increase her own missile damage by up to 100%, which allows you to essentially double your missiles damage. And when you pair that up with one of her buffs from her advancements, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you can get a lot of damage out of your Seorin. And not to mention, she also does have a very good debuff in Sub-Zero, which increases the target's water damage taken by 1% for 30 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. And this can actually be enhanced through her A5 passive, which will increase the water damage taken by 2%, giving you a total of 20%. And finally, as well, she does have some insanely valuable buffs through her A1, being Overtake, which greatly increases her braking performance, and also Limited Break, which increases her DPS potential by an absolute ton, which is again why she is so powerful. And even other buffs that she does have, like her Black Tea buff, which greatly benefits characters who scale off of defense and HP, because she does increase those two stats by 20% whilst also recovering mana for your team. And of course, her A4 being able to increase your whole entire water team's damage by up to 30% is again why she is going to be very, very good for future content, especially in the water team. So yeah, Seorin I think is going to be a hunter who is going to be very, very good in the future, but just isn't quite going to be in the top 5 hunters just yet, which is why she is going to go up to the S+ tier, because I think she's on a pretty similar level to Goto, who I think will definitely become much better when the new Workshop of Brilliant Light does actually come out, which is why she is only going to be in the S+ tier for now. So there you have it. This is my complete and updated tier list just before the anniversary does release, and as we do know, the new Charhain is going to be the anniversary hunter, so fingers crossed, let's hope she is absolutely broken. And overall, if you did enjoy this video or you just found it useful in general, then don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you all in the next video. Peace!